there was this letter sent in November 2024, and it was sent by the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith to Bishop Bitzing, who was then the president of the German Conference of Bishops. And it was in regards to the use or misuse, let's say, of Fiducia supplicans, that controversial document that seemed to at least tacitly promote blessings for irregular couples, let's say, mainly homosexual unions or claimed unions. And this document claimed to say, oh, you can, if some couple like this comes to you, you can spontaneously give them a blessing in the guise of encouraging them to live the example of the gospel better. And there was a lot of confusion over this. The African bishops in particular pushed back, saying, we're not going to bless homosexual unions. That's against church teaching. It's against nature, and you need to clarify this. And the Vatican seemed to be kind of pushed into a corner here of saying, okay, we didn't mean you could bless these unions. It just means it's blessing the individuals who are involved, and we're just trying to encourage them to be better Christians, and we're not trying to legitimize it. Please don't say the
thing was that the entire Francis pontificate was open to interpretation and repeatedly ambiguous.
Exactly.
Right?
There were a lot of issues with that.
And so that was the thing, was you could often look at these documents that were released by the Francis pontificate and read it one way or read it another way, and it kind of depended on who you were and what your persuasion was. And that was one of the main critiques of Pope Francis was, well, what are you saying? Like, for example, with Fiducia supplicans, it was, well, why would you release a document about these blessings if you don't want us to do these blessings, for example? And so it's very wishy-washy, very open to confusion. And obviously, the German bishops, given their political persuasion, leaned immediately into it, going, okay, well, I guess we can do same-sex blessings now. And so now it's really interesting to get this behind-the-scenes letter from the Francis pontificate, just for clarity there, not from Pope Leo. This has been released by Pope Leo, but was put out by was sent originally by the Francis pontificate to the German bishops, saying, no, that's not what we meant at all.
Yes.
And it's just really, it's confusing, but also helpful. Because it was like, I don't understand why you would release Fiducia supplicans and then release this document that says, oh, but we didn't mean anything about same-sex blessings. What are you doing? But at the same time, I'm glad they are rolling it back. I'm glad they did.
Yes, indeed. And this is following up, of course, on Pope Leo's comments on the plane, saying that the Holy See does not agree with the Germans in interpreting Fiducia supplicans this way or in misusing church teaching in any way. And the German bishops are saying, oh, everything we're doing has been approved by Rome. Absolutely. They're trying to push the issue here. And now the Vatican has made public this letter, again, from the previous pontificate, that behind the scenes, Cardinal Fernandez said, and in Italian here, it says homosexual couples, these irregular unions, nothing is intended to be legitimized. So, again, the easiest way to deal with this would be to just say, we're rolling back Fiducia supplicans. Forget this document ever existed. If this is causing confusion, get rid of it. And unfortunately, the church doesn't seem to like to do that very often. This whole actual blatant rolling back of a letter, rolling back of a document. So they're forced into this position of having to say and clarify over and over again in the face of people misusing it as they see it. And it was going on under the previous pontificate in private. The Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, Cardinal Fernandez, were actually telling the German bishops, no, you can't do this. No, you can't do this. And they keep trying to push the issue, and they're continuing to do so under Pope Leo. So we'll see what the next step is. But if you're accustomed to sort of an American view of politics and you're used to tweets flying back and forth and accusations going every which way and so forth, you may think this seems like the church isn't taking this as seriously as they should. In terms of how Rome tends to work and church politics tends to work, things are heating up a little, let's say. That's how this is, because the Vatican is making public the fact that, it's not just us either. The previous pontificate also told you no, so you need to stop. You need to stop, and we'll see what the German bishops' move is, because they keep claiming that what they're doing is in line with what Rome wants, even though Rome is making clear more and more often that they are in disagreement. So we'll see where that develops, and hopefully we will see some real discipline come down. Clearly, they're trying to take every move possible to avoid an actual schism level disagreement in a formal sense, although the behavior obviously is starting to reach that level with the way that the Germans are disobeying Rome. So we will see where that develops, but definitely an interesting move on the part of the Vatican to flat out make this public from the previous pontificate.
I'm glad to see it because it corrects public confusion, and I think even arguably public scandal that was occurring as a result of Fiducia supplicans.
Indeed.
So it's definitely a positive development there. And also, Pope Leo went even further on the plane, though. You know, he didn't just argue about whether or not we could do a formal versus informal blessing, which is what the Francis Pontificate said. Instead, he said, well, no, we can bless individuals, but we can't bless sinful unions.
Yes.
So we are seeing a positive development there. So don't lose hope if you're kind of tied up in all these different, Vatican political drama.
Yeah, and the phrasing, again, it's wishy-washy phrasing, but it does say the blessing is supposed to encourage these people to live the values of the gospel. So, and that's what we should be praying for. We should be praying for anyone struggling with these things to live the actual truths of the faith and live the natural law. So if these blessings can help, let's hope that they do work in that way. But otherwise, we do want to see an end to confusion. That it would be ideal.